So guys, I want to do a video essay and I want to talk about the Acclaimed, and I do want to say that they are not living up to potential, and there are a lot of reasons for it. And I really want to go over it, but I do want to start with this, that the reason why I started to go to AEW shows was because of the Acclaimed. And I actually remember when they won the tag team titles at Arthur Ashe Stadium, I was just losing my fucking mind. And I actually think I remember Anthony Bowens look at me like, wow, this motherfucker's crazy. But it meant a lot to a lot of people for many different reasons. Like, first of all, they were the ultimate underdogs because, first of all, these were two wrestlers that were wrestling in AEW, and they're actually people that were like originals, meaning that they were not developed in other companies. A great example is TNA wrestling, with how you look at somebody like AJ Styles who had to work his ass off to get to a good place, but he was always being, overlooked by WWE people, and that was kind of happening in AEW. There was a lot of WWE NXT people, so there was the element of the underdog. There was also the element of seeing a bunch of people work hard and you didn't know what was going to happen to them, because that happens a lot in professional wrestling, where you see people who work hard, they dedicate themselves. You see how they were doing so many matches, and some of them were like a lot of jobber matches. So a lot of people like it when you have wrestlers that work very hard and you pull and you actually kind of see where you go with them. Like, for example, like Chad Gable versus Gunter. A lot of people were sad that Chad Gable did not win because you saw like all the work that Chad Gable was doing. Or even look with LA Knight, people get emotional over him because he works very, very hard, but we know that not everybody like him gets pushed. Or even like with Cody Rhodes, you see him have weekly matches, you see him be dedicated and passionate. So it hurt when he didn't win last year because people were kind of like, wow, he's putting in all that effort. But you see how Roman Reigns has a title reign over 1,100 days and he doesn't work as hard, really. So we connect with the hard worker, because most people have to work hard and not get very far in their lives. So there's a thing that resonates. And the other thing, too, is that they're two black men. We all know that in professional wrestling, there is systematic racism. You look at how in WWE, even if people don't, for people who don't consider The Rock the first black WWE champion, it took until Kofi Kingston in 2019 to be the first black WWE champion. If you consider The Rock, then you got to tell yourself, okay, from the mid 90s all the way to 2019, in like maybe a 20-year gap, they didn't have one black man hold the WWE championship, not the World Heavyweight Championship, or even like the ECW championship. Let's not count those. But the main title in WWE, there was such a long stretch in time of it not going to black people. And let's also say that I do not believe they ever had an Asian person hold the WWE championship. I think there's a story that Antonio Inoki hold it for a day, but they don't count the reign. But they don't have one reign in WWE with the WWE championship represented by an Asian man. And so obviously they have that level of racism. There's people who call all egg white wrestling, where a lot of times in AEW there's a lot of white people that get pushed. They don't really have a heavyweight division with any black people except for Swerve Strickland, but for a long time it was just the whiteys. So it meant a lot to see the Acclaim actually win. Two black men who had to work very, very hard to get where they're at. So a lot of people resonated with that as well. And then the last thing is that LGBTQ. We've seen a lot of times where LGBTQ is not represented that well. You see Goldust in WWE. You also see Sammy the tranny in WWE with Sexual Chocolate. You also kind of see back in the 90s, you'd see them make jokes about Vince being gay, or Randy Orton saying things that come off as questionably homosexual and other things like that. So there was a lot of homophobia, and then also a lot of wrestlers that were gay were not that were gay did not come out of the closet, like Pat Patterson, until very late. And also too, you look at how wrestlers that were gay were being pushed in some cases. You look at Orlando Jordan and how he was overly sexualized in TNA wrestling, and part of it was his fault for kind of choosing to portray that. I think they asked him and he did that. You also look at Sonny Kiss. Look at how Sonny Kiss was pushed in TNA. 500 days with, I mean, in AEW, 500 days without a match. You also look at Nyla Rose and how she should have been the first women's champion if they were going to go in that direction, not skinny ass 90-pound Rio. You look at how Nyla Rose is pushed. You look at somebody like Dalton Castle. He's not gay, but he actually is influenced by gay culture with his very flamboyant dress. Is very inspired by Elton John. This is true. You look at how he's a jobber, and you also kind of look at how he's also known for having a very stereotypical, very feminine voice, really. So it's even clear in AEW that, it's questionable how they push their LGBTQ wrestlers. I do think that there are examples of LGBTQ wrestlers that are pushed very well nowadays. More so the women in a lot in WWE and in AEW. There's made by women and there's many like lesbian women that are pushed very well. But I would also kind of say that when you see Anthony Bowens and who is gay actually win championships and say I'm the first gay champion in AEW, it meant a lot to people because you don't see that every single day, and most of the time people who are gay get booked as a joke. And other things like that. Like one of the classic examples, latest examples was Lashley sisters. You had three men come out in drag, and you're kind of like making fun of people who identify as trans, who are transvestites. And even Max Caster was doing that. So it means a lot. It meant a lot for a lot of people to see all those things be represented, and that's why the Acclaim means a lot to people. I know this is going to be kind of lengthy. Well, now let's talk about what's going on with them. That. The first issue is you see their you just kind of see like a downgrade in their booking, and I think that comes to backstage politics. They were booked very strongly as tag team champions until they got to the FTR, and what I mean by that is they did something where you took the titles off the Acclaimed and you gave it to the Gun Club, and I think what they wanted to do was Gun Club versus FTR. Because they were afraid that you're going to do baby faces versus baby faces. So they made the Gun Club actually get it. And then you have to wonder if the Gun Club also got it because of Billy Gunn, or maybe they ended the Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee reign early. So there was a sense of pro quo type of thing. But they lost their titles at the wrong time. And I think that maybe what AEW was saying is that, okay, we favor FTR because FTR has those Dave Meltzer matches. So we want to have a heel versus a babyface. So I think that was one of the main reasons that they probably didn't expect the Acclaim to get over, but they didn't have a good ending. So the Acclaim have kind of been in a sense of limbo. But the other thing that happened, so losing titles at the wrong time. The other thing that happened was the Trios title. That they had a good storyline going into Wembley Stadium where we're worried about Billy Gunn retiring. We saw him as a vulnerable older person. And Billy Gunn also represents a lot of wrestlers like Goldust who are older and didn't really get the love and care that they deserved in WWE. Like, I think maybe Billy Gunn should have been WWE champion even in a short reign. Or you look at Goldust, who should have been WWE champion. Or you look at Sting with how he wasn't booked that well in WWE. So sometimes when people resonate with Billy Gunn, but there was a lot of this type of underdog element to the Acclaimed, really. And then they became the Trios champion. It was a big moment at Wembley Stadium for them. And then this is kind of where they fell apart. And here are some more reasons. That first of all, they have a very bad Trios division. That you have the Jeff Jarrett faction, and Jeff Jarrett is an egomaniac. So why don't they kind of capitalize that? Why doesn't Jeff Jarrett get on the microphone and say, you know what, I'm an egomaniac. I want to be the AEW champion, but first I'm going to take all the Trios title. Why don't you do that? With the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, you have Jay White, who's a former NJPW champion. They should be about belt collecting, and you don't do Bang Bang Scissor Gang ROH champions versus the Acclaimed AEW Trios champions. Like, and even like what's happening from last week, it's more of, okay, well, they want to get vengeance for Darby Allin and other things like that. When you could have made Jay White and we could have made Jay White kind of say like, you know what, I don't get the attention that I deserve. I don't get the titles that I deserve. And other things like that. You know, I'm sick and tired of the bad booking in AEW with how they embarrassed me with MJF. Because, like, remember what happened with MJF? They made it look like Jay White couldn't be a one-legged man. You know, so he could have done a feud about that and just saying, you know, I'm going to take my anger out by getting all the titles. You know, so that's another great example. Another great example, I would kind of say for trios titles is also Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. Like, they've done really nothing except for the Best Friends kind of being the cheerleader for Orange Cassidy. What would happen if Orange Cassidy wanted to go after the trios title as well? And then the other thing is Okada and the Young Bucks. I think that Okada and the Young Bucks versus the Acclaimed, that would be a very great feud, because obviously imagine what the Acclaimed would do. You know, they're dissing the vice presidents of the company, and Okada and the Young Bucks would want to be people that would actually would want to like have all the titles that they can have. Really, imagine if they decide to be funny and be like, okay, well, the Acclaimed are making a rap video about us, we're actually going to make a rap video about them. Really, so you see a very weak trios division. You see a lot of just matches, and the Acclaimed has had a bunch of jobber matches, like they've been a bunch of jobbers, but you don't really see them using the feuds. I give you examples of how they can have feuds with multiple teams. The next thing that I would say is Tony Khan being overworked. I do think that that's the big issue as well. You do not see. I think Tony Khan has way too many jobs and way too many roles. So he needs to have people like me or other people that want to book AEW very strongly. So, you know, he should have like a booker for the trios division, a booker for the tag team division, a booker for you know, the women's division. Outside of Kenny Omega, he did a crappy job, really. So he needs to have more bookers, because the problem is maybe he has so many titles that he ignores divisions and other things like that. But he really needs to understand that, okay, what wrestlers does he want to push? What wrestlers does he want to push? You know, in the long term, you know, what wrestlers are young, are like new people or young people they want to make stars one day. What feuds that he should have one day. If he can't come up with that, he should have people like, you know, write like video essays and write like, you know, maybe write an essay, or write like even like a like rubric or checklist of, or an outline almost of all that stuff, really. So I really think that maybe what happens is that it's easy to have jobber matches, or just have the matches instead of the actual booking. So I do think it comes from bad booking or Tony Khan being overworked, because, you know, the heavyweight division's more important. Like, you look at what's happening now. They have the ranking system, and now the ranking system's kind of obsolete because they don't know how to kind of have a lot of good booking. But I really think the reason why they don't do booking that well and storylines that well in AEW is because I think it all falls on Tony Khan's shoulders. So he probably thought about he probably doesn't have time to book a good trios division. You know, hire me, but also, you know, you should hire other people who can take the workload off of Tony. The next thing that I would say is. The next thing that I would say is that they're a victim of MJF comedy. I have other reasons, and they did get some flack for this, because what happened was that Max Caster was saying that he was friends with MJF, really, and they were kind of almost doing the storyline where the devil was attacking multiple people. So honestly, with the Acclaim, they could have done something where it's like Max Caster doesn't have a lot of, that MJF doesn't have a lot of friends because he's a douchebag, but then like, you know, MJF and Max Caster are hanging out, and then he's like, the Max, like, you know what, you're cool, you've worked hard, you overcame a lot of things, you came out of the closet for mentioning that you have ADHD, and that's kind of like a death sentence, you know, for a lot of people. Like with Anthony Bowens coming out for being gay, that's a death sentence, because there's prejudice against people mentioning that they struggle with mental health, and there's people who mention that they're gay in wrestling, and there's like death sentence for that. You know, you look at, like, for example, you look at the most famous wrestler that played a disabled gimmick, Eugene. You also look at a lot of times where wrestlers portray gay wrestlers and they're treated like jokes or whatever, really. So he could have just talked about like how it could have been, you know, him saying, you know, no matter what, you know, I want to be your friend. I think you're cool. You're not alone, really. And that could have been a powerful storyline of MJF learning the power of friendship. And then him not being so douchebaggy. So when he comes back and fights the Undisputed Kingdom, he has the Acclaimed and a couple of other people in it as well. That would have been a good long-term storyline. Like MJF learning to go from a douchebag friend and a user friend to actually a real friend and learning from others to be a real friend. That would have been a beautiful storyline. But they really didn't do that. So instead, they actually had Max Caster hit on MJF and kind of come off as clearly sexual harassment, like very like that creepy gay man. And they got flack for this the same way they got flack for the Juice Robinson quarter thing. Like honestly, they could have just made it more about bullying and Juice Robinson repeating the bullying that happened to MJF. But they didn't do a good job with it, so it came off as an anti-Semitic gimmick. But also, the other thing that I would say is that there's a parallel with that. But when you go back to the Acclaim and Max Caster doing that, he comes off as a creepy gay man. He comes off as Fleece Johnson. He comes off as, okay, all gay people want to sexually harass straight men. Just very similar to that scene in Philadelphia where I think it was Denzel Washington was getting hit on by a gay man for representing another gay man. So yeah, that doesn't help. That's not a good usage. And I think that another thing that could have happened was they could have just said, you know what, maybe the best thing is to inject some comedy. But we're going to inject comedy where a gay man is being a sexual predator to a straight man. So it's not good usage, but it's a great example of how comedy is not used well. And then it brings me to the raps. That yes, they've done some raps, but the raps right now are low quality. You're not getting the oh and the whoa from the audience type of thing. You're not hearing, the last good rap that he made, that Max Caster made was, and buddy, you act so ominous. You being cucked by a kid named Dominic. You don't really see those big burns anymore. What happened at fucking Revolution? You did a joke about how Max Caster's microphone got cut. That's not good. You don't really see them like give like these very big burns, and that actually drew crowds. That actually gave them a lot of attention. It's like what Paul Heyman said. You have to put attention on the motherfucking positives. You look at somebody fucking like Will Ospreay. He has one hell of a great voice. He has one hell of a great promos. And he has one hell of great matches. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to make him like Takeshita, like the quiet guy that just has good matches? No, you have to keep the positives. You have somebody like Eddie Kingston, who was a very passionate talker, who has a very great voice. Why do you think he talks a lot in AEW? Because they know that that's a strength. And you're fucking undercutting fucking Max Caster short by not doing those burn raps. And he needs to go back to that. If he's too late, even if he's being lazy, then, fuck him. He's not living up to full potential. So it's definitely very sad that they don't utilize him. And they kind of say, like, okay, it may be getting a little old, let's do it. Or, you know what, as they said, if they feel it's too controversial or what he's saying is too much of a rib, he has to go and talk to Tony Khan and say, okay, we're going to make this rap verse for this match. What do you think about it? And maybe what he has to do is like maybe it's like 6 lines, he should write 24 lines or 30 lines. And then Tony Khan's like saying, okay, I'm going to cross out the ones that are not okay. But I really don't think that I think that brings me to another issue, is that I don't think that they self-invest. They honestly I feel that way about Wardlow. Wardlow doesn't self-invest. You kind of look at Wardlow versus Samoa Joe and how that was an afterthought match, but maybe the issue is that the Acclaim don't self-advocate that much. They may have said, okay, we're the Trios champion, we reached the zenith, but maybe they don't self-advocate and they're like, okay, Tony, this actually is what works for us. I think that Max Caster and both Max Caster and Anthony Bowens could be wrestling for the AEW championship and become AEW champions one day, or even have a number one contenders match and not win the title. But man, I think that that's the other big issue. They probably just thought that they did everything that they could in AEW and they're just like title holders. But there's so much more that they can do with like trios feuds, singles feuds, being associated with MJF. Like, it's just like, They don't realize, they're just like they're just authors with a bunch of ideas. They're authors with a bunch of pens that don't realize that they have some ideas and they just have to do a little bit more work. But it's really really sad to see what's happened to them. They're definitely they work great, but they're kind of like an afterthought. They don't live up to their full potential, and everybody loves the Acclaimed. So the Acclaimed, you guys start living up to your full potential. You guys have that. Stop being a sword in the throne. And it's not Billy Gunn's fault. It's just that I don't think they lost their ability to self-advocate, and maybe there's other things that took priority. And maybe this is also a sign of not only wrestlers self-advocating, but also Tony Khan not self-advocating and expanding the writing room. We're saying, okay, we need a tag team and trios writers. We need heavyweight champion writers. We need more women's division writers. We need more writers, and we need to combine all that stuff to make sure we actually have a great show. And I think the last thing they'll say is not enough time. You look at the issue with AEW is that you have Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, and ROH, and they do a bad job with ROH. They could have easily have the ROH tag team champions and somebody on AEW talk about like having a feud with each other. But most of the time you watch ROH, they're just having matches and no like storylines. And I've been watching the past couple of weeks, and that's been and some episodes have been like that, nothing but matches. That's the same thing with like with Rampage. Sometimes it's nothing but matches. So they have a lot of time. They have like they have 6 hours of television between ROH, Collision, Dynamite, and Rampage. So that's like 6 hours. I'm in Ring of Honor, so 6 hours with 4 shows. So they really, Collision and Collision Dynamite are 4 hours together, and then you have Rampage and ROH, which are like 2 hours. So yeah, it's right, like 6 hours. So the problem is that you don't utilize the 6 hours good. If you have like titles that are not being well defended in AEW, put them on Dynamite. Have feuds. No, put them on Rampage. Put them on ROH and kind of make them like stand out a lot more. So it's poor utilization of time, and also like it's what they said. There's so many people on the roster that they're going to do a mass no signing soon in AEW really, but that's also the thing. That there's just not enough time, enough space, so they'll probably rush through titles in certain divisions and who should be in those divisions. So it's not good. And then the final thing is the lack of music videos, and that's what in addition to the raps, like the music videos were great, but you did something like you had that rap song, Two Grown Men Going Through a Goth Phase. You do not air it on television. You do not even have like crowd noise, like the audience like laughing at it. And even like when you did that video of them making fun of Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, you didn't do like shots of the audience of people laughing or just show like a reaction of the audience. You don't like. Max Caster should be making comedy music videos. What would happen if he made fun of Juice Robinson and the Bang Bang Scissor Gang and everybody were laughing, and then Juice Robinson actually says, we're going to make a rap video? What would happen if the Undisputed Kingdom actually made a rap video because they wanted to be idiot comedians? Or they made a rap video about Adam Cole or call him or Adam A-hole or something like that. That could be a really funny video. But they don't do that. You look at like the Young Bucks. How funny would that be if Max Caster did a rap about people that were his bosses and talk about like how they got their ass kicked by CM Punk? There's so much fucking dynamite in that. There's so much lightning in the motherfucking bottle that they don't use. And then again, you talk about AEW with dumb comedy. This is dumb comedy done well. You have a roast rapper in Max Caster, and you don't fucking utilize him to his full potential. And then this is the way to do comedy. You don't do something like Eddie Kingston do his comedy chops. You don't do something like have MJF, who's in a friendship betrayal storyline, and he stops and he's kind of like dancing like an idiot during matches. This is the best utilization of the comedy that they can possibly do, and they don't fucking do it. So it's just they've either forgot what works for the Acclaimed, Tony Khan and both the Acclaimed, or there is a sense that maybe they don't care anymore, or there's a sense that everybody's so busy that they don't have more people to actually help Tony Khan. So good ideas are very just go under everybody's nose, really, when they could capitalize. But they need to get back to the Acclaim being these underdogs, and they're better title chasers. They should be going after the AEW championship. They should be having rap videos. They should be having rap promos. But the Acclaimed are definitely not living up to potential.